to another main slate breakdown. My name is James McCool. I'm the owner of Paydirt.com, and today we're going to be breaking down NFL main slate week 3. Pretty crazy to think that we're already in week 3. Things have been flying by quite quickly, but that's okay. We like NFL season. We're going to be moving into NBA season here pretty soon. You can kill me now. Just those who are part of the Discord or just follow me on Twitter know that I hate NBA season. I think that it's brutal, and I'm just not ready for the grind. But we're going to be focusing on NFL today. Last week I had David Hess join me for this, and this week I'm going to be doing it alone. So bear with me. I think that I do a pretty good alone breakdown, but for those of you who like a little bit more insight, you can jump into the Discord where we're going to be talking about things all morning. It's free to join. You can find a link over on the site over at paydrdfs.com. So without further ado, this breakdown is going to be a little quicker than we have done in weeks past. We're still going to go along the same format. We're going to start with the game with the lowest over-under on the slate, and then we're going to move into the games with the highest over-under on the slate. Reason for that is so that I can put a little bit more focus on the games that I think are bad anyway, just so that I can have a little bit better insight. But we're going to be talking about the games from a macro perspective, the game environment, and then we're going to talk about the players that matter, if there are any that matter, and what I personally think would be the right thing to do with that game. So let's go ahead and get started. The lowest over-under on this slate is going to be Chicago and Houston. This game is okay. Like, when you are looking at these two teams, they seem like they are mostly terrible, right? And for the most part, they are. Justin Fields has looked okay when he has been allowed to actually go do things, but he hasn't been allowed to do much. They are a team that wants to run the ball a lot. I'm pretty sure that they are by far the most run-heavy team in the league, especially in the goal line. Chicago has only one pass play so far this year. They have 14 running plays in the red zone. That's a 6% pass rate in the red zone, which is just atrocious. It's really, really bad. Whereas San Francisco's second lowest pass rate in the league at 17.86%. They have 5 pass plays. Houston is about league average in terms of goal line percentage with their pass splits. Both these teams are a little bit more run heavy. Or, well, no, Chicago is 43% adjusted pass rate. Houston is 61.82% adjusted pass rate. So Houston a little bit higher upside here than Chicago is in terms of their pass rate. The main thing here, though, is if you go and look on the site at the aggressive throw index, Chicago is still super aggressive when they're throwing. They have 13.19% explosive air yards per throw over league average, which is the highest in the league. Tampa Bay comes in second at 12.58%, and then it falls off a cliff with New Orleans being at 7.6%. And again, you guys can find this over at the site, but here's the top of the list. Chicago at 13% above league average, Tampa Bay 12%, New Orleans is 7.6%, and then Houston here at 5.1%. So, like, there's reasons why you would want to go with this game. Both of these teams are aggressive when they are throwing. The thing is that, like, they just don't throw all that much. I guess Houston throws a little bit more, and you could like that side a little bit more, but you don't really want to stack the Houston side because it's really just Brandon Cooks. Like, there's nothing else. So what do you do with this game? I think that most people are going to be going with David Cook or David Montgomery, which I think is fine. But David Montgomery never seems to be a good chalk. He just doesn't seem to work out the way that people want him to. I think I have him projected okay here at Paydirt. I think I have him projected, he projects fine. He's 5,900 and projects for about 17. So you can go there. The Houston side is kind of a train wreck in terms of their running backs. So I don't know. I think probably the best way to go about this, if you wanted to use a secondary stack here and go Darnell Mooney and Brandon Cooks, I'm fine with that. If you wanted to just use David Montgomery, I think I'm fine with that as well. But this game's pretty gross, and the 39 over-under makes a lot of sense. Moving along, we have New Orleans and Carolina. This game has an over-under of 41, projected only at 118.5 plays. New Orleans is projected for 1.87 passing touchdowns, which is actually pretty good on this slate. For reference, that's about the same as the LA Rams. It's more than Arizona and Indianapolis, and more than Detroit, and those teams all have much higher over-unders here. So they're in an okay spot in terms of their passing rate, but they're not really a team that looks great to stack. And you have to worry about the health of Jameis Winston too, right? Like he has, a fractured spine or some shit. He's playing with basically a broken back, and that doesn't ever feel good. But it is worth noting that, this passing offense, when they are passing, is very aggressive. They're third in the league in the aggressive throw index at 7.6%. I think their pass splits are okay. Now they're running a lot, 54% adjusted pass rate. That's pretty low in the league, bottom 5. In terms of goal line, though, they are 77% adjusted pass rate, which is pretty good. But again, dealing with just Jameis Winston back issue, it just doesn't inspire a lot of confidence. Chris Olave got a lot of attention last week. He has 334 air yards so far in the year, which is a fucking lot of air yards. He basically broke the air yards models last week. He might be popular this week. I don't know. I don't think that he should be, but he might be. New Orleans just doesn't have that high team total. It's only 21.75, so I don't think he's going to catch all that much attention. Michael Thomas and Jarvis Landry both had good games in week 1, so I think there's upside to this offense if Jameis Winston is healthy. The only other note for this team is that Alvin Kamara looks terrible in this offense. Like, Sean Payton is gone. This is a new offense, it's a new look, and Alvin Kamara is just not getting the work so far. So maybe he will. It's only week 2, but he's looked pretty bad. On the other side of this, for Carolina, Christian McCaffrey is still getting a pretty good workload. He did have 19 fantasy points last week, which was fine, but he hasn't been getting very many targets, and I think that probably continues. Baker Mayfield is really not somebody who likes to check down, coming from that Cleveland system. He's just not a check down warrior. So I don't think that you would expect Christian McCaffrey's target share to go drastically up. So that's a little bit worrisome at his price. Outside of him, DJ Moore and Robbie Anderson are pretty much the only pieces of this offense that matter, and Robbie Anderson specifically has been pretty good, all things considered. I think, let me go check for just specifically Carolina here. DJ Moore so far averaging 57.5 air yards per game. Robbie Anderson averaging 54. They're both 30% of the air yards here overall. Robbie Anderson is getting slightly more targets and is getting more red zone targets. So certainly think that my call in the offseason of Robbie Anderson over DJ Moore is looking pretty good. But overall, so with this game, it's pretty low over under. I don't think there's really much reason to stack it. Very likely the best thing that you're going to want to be doing is just doing a secondary correlation. But you have a lot of options to choose from here. It's not as clear cut as that Houston-Chicago game. So you could go Chris Olave and Robbie Anderson. You could go Michael Thomas and DJ Moore. You could go any number of the wide receivers in this game as secondary correlation, and it'll work out fine. I don't think the prices are all that bad. Moving on to this next game, we have Seattle and Atlanta. So Seattle-Atlanta is a 42 over-under, projected for 121 plays here. This is kind of an interesting game. There's been some buzz on Atlanta overall. There's some interesting projections out there. If you're in the Discord, you saw me talking about how I thought that Tua and Mariota having the same projection is crazy sauce. Like that doesn't make any sense to me. Tua should be projected at least a couple points higher than Mariota. I'm fine with Mariota being projected for like 18, 19, 20. His rushing share has been terrific. But I think that Tua should be projected notably higher. Like he should be at least a tier above where Mariota is. And the reason for that is that even though Mariota is running quite a bit, this offense is just not effective. They can move the ball okay, but then they kind of fall apart in the red zone. They're a little bit more predictable. They don't have that many playmakers. Drake London has been good, though, So Drake London, if you're looking at the wide receiver research models, which I'll pull up here, Drake London is doing pretty well. He's averaging 8 receptions, 86 receiving yards per game, 46% of the air yards, 48% of the target share. That's really, really good. He's averaging 23 fantasy points per game, just about. So he's not bad. People are going to play Kyle Pitts because they hate themselves. I don't think that you should be playing Kyle Pitts right now until this offense turns around on him a little bit. The coaching staff has come out. They're not going to make him a priority. And I don't know why the fantasy industry would make him a priority in that light. So on the other side of this game, we have Seattle, where, it's a Geno Smith-led offense. It's not that good. It's Pete Carroll-led offense. It's not that good. There's really only one person on this offense that I think is notable, and that's Rashad Penny. And that's if you think that Seattle is going to have a lead. And, granted, at the time of recording this, Seattle is 1-point favorites, but I wouldn't call that, confident of getting a lead. So Rashard Penny projects pretty well for his price. I don't hate him, but it's kind of weird. I think that I'd much prefer Cordero Patterson on the other side of this game. I don't know why I would go with Rashad Penny here on an offense that I don't think is very good and don't respect. And is more pass heavy too. Like Seattle, adjusted pass rate of 67.3%. Like that's pretty high. Atlanta is more rush heavy. They're projected for 30 rushing plays, whereas Seattle is only projected for 20 rushing plays. So there's not really much that I love in this game. I guess I'm fine with the Atlanta side. I prefer Cordero Patterson over anybody else in this game. But if you're going to go with an Atlanta stack, I think that it's very obviously that you're going Marcus Mariota with Drake London. And I don't even think you need to bring back. I guess you can bring back with DK Metcalf if you want to, but I just wouldn't be doing that. Going on to this next game, this game has a surprisingly low total. It is Tampa Bay versus Green Bay. Tampa Bay is a 1-point favorite at the time of recording this. I'm not sure what they will be by the time the lock hits, because they have no wide receivers. Mike Evans is missing this game. Chris Godwin is missing this game. They have Russell Gage. They have Cole Beasley got called up. It's gross. Scotty Miller. Like they have no wide receivers for this game. Cameron Brate is their tight end, and I guess he's their starter, but he's not really that good. On the Green Bay side of things, they have Chris Watson out, and they have Sammy Watkins on IR. So they're going to be going in this game with Alan Lazard as their main wide receiver, probably Romeo Doubs and Randall Cobb splitting wide receiver 2 work, which feels terrible again. Just this game, just the low over-under makes sense even with 2 very strong quarterbacks, because both of these teams are more run-heavy this year. Both their quarterbacks are aging, and there are no wide receivers that you can trust. So 42 over-under makes a lot of sense. Looking at the expected pass rates, expected touchdown stuff, Green Bay only projected for 1.46 passing touchdowns. Tampa Bay only projected for 1.4 passing touchdowns. That's less than, there are a handful of teams. There's 10 teams that have over 2 projected passing touchdowns. This game is just gross. The best plays in this game are the running backs. So I think that Leonard Fournette and Aaron Jones are by far the best plays in this game. Leonard Fournette being the one that I would prefer the most, I think, only because he's not going to split work with really anybody in the backfield, whereas Aaron Jones has to split with A.J. Dillon, and there's no telling who really gets the goal line work there. A.J. Dillon should get it, but Aaron Jones gets receptions in the goal line, so it's kind of back and forth there. I think that Leonard Fournette is a terrific play this week. I have him projected well. His workload is fantastic. His target share should be good this week too. There's no reason why he can't get 7 to 9 targets in this game when they have no wide receivers. They have nothing. So those 2 are really the only plays I like in this game. I think people are going to try to use Green Bay value. I think people are going to try to use Tampa Bay value, wide receivers, to make things work and to make the expensive stacks work. And I think that's going to be a mistake. I don't think anybody in either one of these teams gets more than 5 targets for the wide receivers. So you're basically banking on one of those targets being a deep ball and being a touchdown, and that's really the only thing that'll kill you if anybody rosters this value. I think there's just going to be much more opportunity in going with mid-range costs for your builds. So, yeah, I'm not high on this game at all. Moving along, we have the Chargers and Jacksonville. So at time of recording this, Jacksonville is a 3-point underdog. Chicago is a 3-point favorite. I think that moves to like -4.5. I think that moves to like 4.5-point favorites for the Chargers because Justin Herbert is a game time decision, and I think is going to play because as a game time decision, he played last week and looked okay with fractured cartilage outside of like the one play where he literally couldn't throw the ball, which doesn't inspire a lot of confidence, but here we are. I think he plays. So I think that Chargers probably 4.5-point favorites here, but that they're going to hide Justin Herbert if he plays, and if Chase Daniels plays, they're going to hide him. So the wide receivers in this game, I think, are not all that great for the Chargers. I much prefer Austin Eckler. I think Austin Eckler is in a terrific spot here. Nobody's going to play him. But it's not like he can't run against the Jacksonville defense. Like, their defense is good. They've got a top 10 defense right now, but it's not like he can't run. It's not like Austin Eckler is not good. I think that they absolutely have to put the offense on his shoulders here and kind of hide Justin Herbert or Chase McDaniels. On the other side, Jacksonville stacks. Like, Jacksonville is really pass heavy. In the red zone, they're about league average, but in terms of their pass rate, adjusted rate of 63%, they look really good in that regard. Christian Kirk has been fantastic for them. Zay Jones has not been terrific, but like it's hard because they're cheap, right? And they are projected okay for their passing touchdowns. 1.36. They are projected for 38 passing attempts. Like, Jacksonville, if they're in this game, I think that there are going to be pieces that are worthwhile. I did get some questions about James Robinson and his workload. And the main reason why James Robinson's workload looks bad is because they're only projected for 20 rushing attempts and less than 1 rushing touchdown. So, like, even though he's getting a good market share of the work, it's just not a valuable team to be on right now for a running back. These pass-heavy teams, they're just always going to err on the side of the passing game. They're not going to err on the side of the running game. So I don't really like James Robinson that much. I don't really like anything in this stack, period. You could go with the secondary of Mike Williams and Christian Kirk, but then you have to trust that Justin Herbert is going to be able to distribute the ball with that injury, or his backup is going to have to distribute the ball, right? So I really only like Austin Eckler here. I think he's the best play in this game by a long shot, and I don't hate the Jacksonville defense either. Well, I shouldn't say that. If Chase Daniels plays, I don't hate the Jacksonville defense. If Justin Herbert plays, I think they pass the ball maybe 25 times. And just hide him. So that doesn't really speak to a lot of upside for defense. Moving along, we have this Baltimore-New England game. Is that right? Is it Baltimore-New England? Did I say that right? Why did I think they were going up against Cincinnati? It's a bit weird. Okay, yeah, it is Baltimore Ravens versus New England Patriots. Well, my bad there. I thought they were going up against Cincinnati. Either way, this is not a super great game to target for a lot of upside. I do like the Baltimore side. I always like the Baltimore side. I think they're one of the best stacks that you can make. Surprisingly, they're only 3-point favorites here. Their implied score 23.5, which is okay. They're much more run heavy in the red zone. They're projected for 1.58 rushing touchdowns, only 1.05 passing touchdowns, but that really only speaks to Lamar Jackson. J.K. Dobbins is back this week, so that matters, I guess. You could play J.K. Dobbins, but with Lamar Jackson having such a strong portion of the rushing market share, I'm just never really interested in J.K. Dobbins or any of the running backs for this team. Rashad Bateman and Mark Andrews have both been great. Devin Duvernay cleared the concussion protocol and is going to play. There's reasons to like Baltimore stack. The only issue is, like, who the fuck would you run it back with on New England? There's nobody. I guess you could do Ramondre Stevenson, I guess, if you're paying down at running back, which I think a lot of people will. But I don't have interest in that. And as far as New England goes, I don't have any interest in their offense at all. Like, I just don't. There's so little to say about this game. You could do, and I've been talking about this for a couple weeks now, you could just do a Baltimore stack and just do Lamar Jackson with either Mark Andrews or Rashad Bateman. I'm fine with either. And then not have a bring back. I think there is upside there. I think that Baltimore can put up points and will continue to put up points and will step on the gas and just kind of crush New England underneath them. But they definitely tend to be better in shootouts and in high-scoring games. So if you want to stack, do a mini Baltimore stack with just Lamar Jackson and one of his wide receivers or Mark Andrews, like, I'm fine with that. But I'm not doing anything else in this game. I think this game just mostly sucks. On to the next one here. Here's the Cincinnati game. So we have Cincinnati versus Las Vegas. This game is awesome. Cincinnati versus New York Jets. Sorry. But still, this game is awesome. Cincinnati is a 6-point favorite, and they are, I think, still overrated by most of the industry. They just don't have a lot going for them in terms of explosiveness. They are 5.57% below league average in explosiveness. In terms of their pass splits, they're league average around 59%. In terms of their goal line splits, they are more pass heavy, 72%. But when you look at this offense, like, they're just not aggressive enough. These short passes underneath and not going over the top like they were doing last year, like, that's going to hurt them a lot. It's going to hurt the upside of this offense a lot because they made their money on those aggressive plays last year, and they just don't have it this year. They're just not playing aggressively enough to unlock the upside of guys like Jamar Chase. It makes T. Higgins slightly more aggressive, slightly more attractive to me than Jamar Chase, especially because Jamar Chase is so expensive. Now, I understand at the same time that you're like, oh, well, Jamar Chase is still doing fine. Like, he is still averaging 19 fantasy points per game. And yeah, he is on 12 targets per game, but that's still only a 28% target share. That's not that high. He still only has 30% of the air yards. That's not that high. When you're looking at other guys who are priced up there as well, even Gabriel Davis is like, he still has 38% of the air yards when he's playing. Guys like Drake London, like I said, 46% of the air yards, 48% of the target share. Jalen Waddle, 34% of the air yards, 27% of the target share. Like, there are just better plays overall than Jamar Chase when it comes to his price. So I would probably just rather go with T. Higgins just because he's cheaper. On the other side of this game, we have the Jets. Now, the Jets, I mentioned this on Twitter. The Jets suck. All right, they're not a good team. They're not a very aggressive team either. They are 4.27% below league averageness and aggressiveness, but they are really pass heavy in the red zone. They only have 61% pass rate between the 20s, but when it comes to the red zone, they have passed the ball 21 times this year. They have ran the ball 2 times, which is nothing. They have a 91.3% adjusted pass rate in the red zone. That's a lot. Considering the vast majority of touchdowns happen in the red zone, when you have a 91% pass rate in the red zone, things are going to happen for you. Like, you're going to get fantasy points from wide receivers in the red zone at that point. Garrett Wilson is actually 3rd in the league in average fantasy points right now. He's averaging 30 PPR points per game in the league. That's 3rd, right behind Stephon Diggs and Cooper Kupp, and right above Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle. And then Corey Davis actually is top 25 too. He's averaging 15 fantasy points per game. There's reasons to like this New York Jets offense for fantasy, even if they suck. Now, the game has to be competitive, right? So Cincinnati has to be able to get on it and score points, or Cincinnati has to be coming from behind, which they have been playing from behind a lot. So There's things to like here. I certainly like a Garrett Wilson with Jamar Chase or Garrett Wilson with T. Higgins mini stacks. I like Corey Davis. I'm fine with Jamar Chase. I even think that like you could stack the Jets and do worse. Right? They're projected for 1.99 passing touchdowns. That is more than Las Vegas. It's more than the Rams. It is almost as much as Cincinnati. It's more than New Orleans. Like, these teams that have these really high team totals, it's almost as much as them. And that's just because they just pass the ball when they get in the red zone. So if the Jets put up 21 points here, it's very likely that they threw for 3 touchdowns and that they are an okay stack, especially for the price. So that's probably my hot take this week, is I think the Jets make for like a really interesting stack, and certainly a really, really good secondary stack. Like, I would be surprised if I didn't have something like Garrett Wilson with T. Higgins as a secondary stack today, just because the opportunity for them is just really, really good, I think, in this game environment. I didn't talk much about the running backs here. I think that they're probably fine. Joe Mixon has been getting a lot of work. Let's see. Yeah, Joe Mixon has been getting a lot of work. 77% of the rushing market share, 45 receiving yards per game, 6.5 targets per game. It's pretty good. The other one is Michael Carter, right? He's been getting 72% of the rushing work and 17% of the target share with 7 targets per game. So I think both of these guys are worthwhile. Obviously, Joe Mixon is considerably more expensive. So Michael Carter would be the more attractive one, but you would also, again, when it comes to the red zone work, like the Jets just don't have any red zone work for their running backs. So you'd have to expect Michael Carter to get there either on volume or receiving volume or a long touchdown. So I think that's kind of hard. I don't think that feels great. Everything just kind of points to me wanting to spend up at running back this week. And we'll talk about that a little bit later. But guys like Aaron Jones and DeAndre Swift and Jonathan Taylor and Christian McCaffrey are much more attractive than kind of the cheaper guys that I think are kind of trappy this week, and don't make a lot of sense. The linchpin of this week, I think, is James Conner's injury. If he plays, then you really just have to kind of eat crow at running back or pay up, and I think the paying up is a lot more attractive. But that being said, Michael Carter and Joe Mixon, I think, are both fine plays here. I don't have any problem with either one of them. Let's go ahead and move on. We have this next game, which is, let's see, Tennessee-Las Vegas. So Tennessee-Las Vegas is a 45 over-under. Las Vegas is one of my favorite stacks of the entire week. I wrote them up in the Stacks and Stats article. They just make so much sense in terms of being able to stack them up and get a little bit of leverage on some of the other really popular expensive stacks, because I don't think that Las Vegas stacks are going to be all that popular at all. I think Devante Adams will be popular, but I don't think that Derek Carr will be popular. I don't think that Darren Waller will be popular. And those three make up the vast majority of this offense. I think that people are going to more likely try to take some shots on Mac Hollins, which I think is fine. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. But like, this target tree is going to be really condensed. I think that Devante Adams is in a really good bounce back spot here. And Devante Adams and Darren Waller, I noted, make up like 70+% of the air yards for this team and 70+% of the target share for this team. Very likely when it comes to this game. So if Las Vegas ends up putting up points, it's likely going to come from that stack of Derek Carr, Devante Adams, and Darren Waller. We do have some injury news here that we need to note. Josh Jacobs is questionable to play. I think that he was traveling to Tennessee to try to play, but he was questionable. So keep an eye on that. If he ends up being out, Brandon Bolden, I think, is the right play in this spot. Everyone assumes Zamir White, but that's just because people like rookie running backs for whatever reason. Las Vegas, one of the more pass-heavy teams in the league. As you can see, they have a 70% adjusted pass rate, and they're projected for 1.96 passing touchdowns. That's because of a 74% adjusted red zone rate in terms of pass rate. So they're a good stack. I like them a lot. The only issue is that on the Tennessee side, Tennessee looked like fucking dirt last week. Granted, they were playing Buffalo, who's just an incredible team, and are going to be able to shut down teams really, really well all year. But they looked so bad. I've had some questions asking me about Derrick Henry. I have Derrick Henry projected very, very badly. He looks really bad. I was pretty concerned about him with his foot injury from last year. I didn't know if he would continue to be as explosive as he has been. So maybe that's coming true. I don't know. We'll see. But overall, just don't like Tennessee offense. The only piece that is worthwhile is going to be Treylon Burks. And you can bring him back in this Las Vegas stack. And I think have plenty of upside. So something like Derek Carr, Devontae Adams, Darren Waller, and Treylon Burks probably makes a lot of sense and something that I'd be very interested in. Let's move along here to the next game. So now we're starting to get into the good over-unders. We have Philadelphia and Washington. Philadelphia is a 6.5 point favorite. This is a 47 over-under. They are projected at 26.75 real life points and has quite a bit of upside. But they're super run heavy in the red zone, right? So Philadelphia, one of those bottom 5 teams in terms of pass rate in the red zone, only 35% so far on the year. That mostly comes from Jalen Hurts. It comes from Miles Sanders. They like to use Boston Scott. They like to use Kenneth Gainwell. They have a lot of guys they can use down in the red zone, and that makes it really hard to feel confident in rostering any of them except for Jalen Hurts, who's in a really good spot here. On the other side, Washington, super pass heavy. Washington has a 72% adjusted pass rate between the 20s and then 76% adjusted pass rate in the red zone. So a very, very pass heavy team projected for kind of the opposite of this Philadelphia spot where they are much more likely to pass for touchdowns rather than run for touchdowns, which makes Carson Wentz continue to be a good play. I noted last week that people just want to continue to dunk on Carson Wentz, but he's been really good, not only in real life, but also for fantasy. Like, he's going to continue to make those boneheaded mistakes because that's what he does. He just tries to make too many things happen, but he's been solid, and especially in fantasy, he's been really, really good. So this is another week where I think the Washington stacks are completely in play. I also think that a Philadelphia stack of Jalen Hurts with A.J. Brown is just terrific this week. A.J. Brown is one of the highest air yards getters in the league, second in the league in terms of his team's total air yards, 55.77%, just behind Chris Olave at 63%. That's really, really high. Those are some really, really good numbers, and I just think that he's somebody who you have to have a lot of interest in this spot up against a Washington team that just gave up, a 45 fantasy point game to Amon-Ra St. Brown. So A.J. Brown, awesome option. I think Terry McLaurin or Curtis Samuel both are fantastic options. Logan Thomas continues to get good looks in the red zone. Devante Smith got back on track last week. Dallas Goedert looked really good last week. There's a lot of things to like in this game. I think you have to really stack up. Like, you're either doing a skinny stack with Jalen Hurts and A.J. Brown, or you're doing a Washington stack with Carson Wentz, Terry McLaurin, and probably Logan Thomas. That's what I stacked last week, and I wouldn't mind going back to it. You can do Curtis Samuel instead of Terry McLaurin, but I just think that if Washington's going to start to find success, they're probably going to realize they have to get him involved. And he was close last week to a really good game and ended up just not getting the touchdown. So really do like Terry McLaurin this week. A secondary stack of either Terry McLaurin and A.J. Brown or Curtis Samuel and A.J. Brown I think works out a lot too. But A.J. Brown is somebody who I have just a lot of interest in this week. I think he's a really, really good play. The price is right on him as well. So really, really like this game. Really like the upside in this game. I don't like the running backs, really. I think Antonio Gibson is fine, but I don't know. His workload just is as much as it is fine. I think there are probably better plays. I might play him. I'm not sure. We'll see. It's early. I don't know exactly what I'm going to do with him yet. Let's go to this next game. We have a 48 over-under here between the Rams and the Cardinals, 124.5 projected plays here. The Rams are much more pass heavy than the Cardinals, 69% adjusted pass rate for the Rams versus just a 57% adjusted pass rate for the Cardinals. When it comes to the red zone, the Rams have been in the past more pass or more run heavy in the red zone. This year they've been a little bit more pass heavy, 65% adjusted pass rate, whereas Arizona sitting in at 66%, just above them. So this game is hard because I still think that Arizona is bad. They have not shown any real upside. They won last week on their overtime heroics, but I just think that they're a bad, messy team that doesn't have a lot of talent. Ronald Moore is still out. I think that it's still going to be the lead of Marquise Brown and Greg Dortch, with Zach Ertz being there as well and maybe getting some red zone targets. Overall, I just don't like this Arizona offense. I haven't liked it most of the year, and I'm not going to start now. The Rams, on the other hand, are pretty much just Cooper Kupp. Allen Robinson did get on track last week, which was good. Tyler Higbee continues to get a massive target share, which is fine. But it's really just Cooper Kupp. That's all that it is. If you're going to stack on this game, it's very likely that you're just doing a Cooper Kupp and Marquise Brown secondary stack. Or I guess you can stack the Arizona side and hope this game turns into a shootout and have it be Kyler Murray, Marquise Brown, and Zach Ertz and bring back Cooper Kupp. But I just don't love this game overall. The other thing that matters here, like I said earlier, is James Conner. If James Conner is out, then I think that everybody is going to rush to Eno Benjamin for the value on the slate so that they can make things work, and I guess I get that. The other guy there will be Darrell Williams, and I think that he will be involved as well. For the Rams, Cam Akers got a much better workload last week, and it was not Darrell Henderson's season. So for my best ball teams, that sucks. I have a lot of Darrell Henderson. I don't have a lot of Cam Akers, but I think that's mostly what we just expect here. They're going to use both of them. I think that it's going to be situational. I think it is a true hot hand situation. So that really takes the shine off of either one of them. I don't think either one is really all that valuable. All right, let's get on to the last couple games here. Kansas City, Indianapolis. This game is a 50 over-under, 124.5 projected plays. I'm surprised that Indianapolis is only a 5.5 point underdog here. Indianapolis looks bad. Sure, they get Michael Pittman back. Sure, they get Alec Pierce back. But, I don't think that Michael Pittman can save this offense. I think Matt Ryan is washed. I think that Jonathan Taylor as the linchpin of an offense is very similar to Derrick Henry as the linchpin to an offense, whereas both of them require the team to be good around them in order to really find their ceilings. And it's just not a spot that I feel a lot of confidence in for this team, especially up against Kansas City. It's very likely that Indianapolis is going to be trailing. Matt Ryan has not been good when trailing for 3 years now. I don't necessarily think that Indianapolis is really a strong team when they have to play from behind. I think they play much better when they're playing from ahead. So I think that the way that you do this game specifically is if you think that this game is going to hit the over-under of 50, I think that you're playing Jonathan Taylor with Travis Kelce or Jonathan Taylor with Juju Smith-Schuster. I think that Jonathan Taylor is the only thing that can make this game competitive. And it has to come early, right? Jonathan Taylor has to get there. He has to have 60 rushing yards in the first 10 minutes and a touchdown in order to keep Indianapolis in this game and make it competitive. So if you're going to stack, I think Kansas City, a Kansas City stack of Patrick Mahomes with Juju and Travis Kelce, and then a bring back of Jonathan Taylor is the only way that you can really do this game, because Michael Pittman isn't going to be the one that saves them here. I just don't think that they're a team that is going to be good enough in that regard to utilize Michael Pittman coming from behind as well as they did in week 1. It's just not going to make sense to me throughout the entire year, I don't think. That being said, a secondary stack of Michael Pittman and Travis Kelce I think is fine. I much prefer Jonathan Taylor, though. I think he's really the only thing that can keep them in this game. So, but these teams, they're easy to break down, right? There's not much more to say other than Kansas City is good. You can stack them. Indianapolis will run the ball a lot. You can use Jonathan Taylor. Michael Pittman, I guess, is fine, but I don't love him. That's pretty much it. There's not much about this game. It's a really high total game that I don't think should be that high of a total. In fact, I think the best thing to do in this game is just take the under. I think this should be like a 46 over-under. I don't think it should be 50. So I think Kansas City should also be much larger favorites. If you want to take the spread on them, if you can still find them at 5.5, I don't know what they're at right now. I haven't reran Vegas stuff this morning. But if you can find them at 5.5, I love that line. Moving on to this next game, we have a 52 over-under between Minnesota and Detroit. Minnesota's a 6-point favorite here. They shouldn't be. They are projected for a team total of 29. 126 plays projected in this game, which is pretty high. Minnesota and Detroit are two of the fan favorite teams from this year. I understand why the over-under is 52. I don't understand why Minnesota is a 6-point favorite against Detroit. Detroit's offense looks legit. They have real playmakers. They have a coaching staff that has really bought into their playmakers. Minnesota, on the other hand, has Justin Jefferson, which is fine. Dalvin Cook has looked like okay. They have playmakers, but they also have Kirk Cousins, who really has issues performing in the moment, right? Like, he definitely is like the poster boy for Cialis. So shout out to Twitter for that meme. That's some really funny stuff. So, but this game, I mean, I, like everyone else in the world, have interest in this game, but I think that I very likely have more interest in just secondary stacks, and the most of my interest actually comes from DJ Chark. DJ Chark last week completely fucked me, completely fucked many of us, but he's been out. His averages are pretty good in this offense. So right now, as it stands, we have DJ Chark with an ADOT of 18.65, only averaging 2 receptions per game, so I get that. But averaging 105 air yards per game, has 35% of the air yards in this offense. Amon-Ra St. Brown, for instance, only has 25. 16% market share. It's third on the team right behind TJ Hawkinson. Red zone share is the same as TJ Hawkinson, 17%. I think that the fantasy points are going to come for DJ Chark. He was this close last week. He ended up having a long throw that he just couldn't haul in that would have been like a for sure touchdown. It would have been like 75-yarder or something like that. But I think the DJ Chark, like, the fantasy points are coming, and I think that everybody is super focused on Amon-Ra St. Brown right now, which is fine. I get that. But I do think there's some fruit on the tree for DJ Chark. And I think there's fruit on the tree for Adam Thielen, too. They started to get him involved last week. I think last week's going to be a wake-up call for them, that it can't just be Justin Jefferson, that Adam Thielen has to be involved in order for them to find success against the better teams in the league. And I think they're going to need Adam Thielen in this game as well. So as far as the running backs go, DeAndre Swift is ridiculous, but he's not getting the red zone mark. So that's really concerning. You pretty much have to hope that DeAndre Swift does do some crazy shit like he did last week, where he like fell down and ended up still having like a 50-yard run or something. I think he scored a touchdown. But he literally fell down and still scored a touchdown. You have to hope for stuff like that because he just doesn't get the red zone work. That's all Jamal Williams. On the other side, people are into Dalvin Cook this week, and I just don't see it. Like, Minnesota is so pass heavy in the red zone. They have an 86% adjusted pass rate in the red zone. They have only ran 3 times in the red zone. They have passed it 18 times in the red zone. So, like, unless you think that Dalvin Cook is going to get there on receiving work, there's just better options. His workload is fine, but they just don't run in the red zone, and you have to hope that he ends up, grinding it out between the 20s and then running into a red zone touchdown or getting a receiving red zone touchdown, and I just think that there are better bets to be made. The other important play in this game, I think, is Irv Smith Jr. He projected to be really, really heavy chalk a little bit earlier in the week, and I still think that he is going to be really heavy chalk. He's really cheap. He got a great workload on national television. I think that he will be popular. All of that said, this game is really good to stack. I really like the Minnesota side. I think you can do the Minnesota side and bring back DJ Chark. I think that's really interesting. I think that's really unique, especially for super large field stuff. I like secondary stacks, DJ Chark and Justin Jefferson, Amon-Ra St. Brown. Justin Jefferson is expensive but awesome. you can stack it up really any way that you want. You can do Irv Smith Jr. and DJ Shark. I think would be fine too. And like that saves you a lot of money, takes up the tight end position. I think that works really, really well. So there's a lot of ways to go about it. I'm not into Dalvin Cook. I could be talked into DeAndre Swift, but again, the lack of red zone work really irks me. So I really just like stacking this game. Finally, we have the game that everybody is focused on, this Buffalo-Miami game. There's really not much to say. This is kind of like the Kansas City Indianapolis game where like it's so easy to break down these teams that it's almost boring to talk about. But we'll talk about it. So this is a 53 over-under. Buffalo are 5.5 point favorites here, implied to score 29.25 real life points. Both these teams are implied for over 40 passing attempts. That's quite a bit. That's why I have Tua projected so well. The other thing is that both of these teams are pass heavy in the red zone. Buffalo a little bit less so, but Miami very pass heavy in the red zone. Miami has an 80% adjusted pass rate in the red zone. Buffalo's 65% adjusted pass rate. The biggest thing here is that these teams are just so predictable. Like all it is for Buffalo, it's just Josh Allen, Stephon Diggs, and Gabriel Davis who is going to play. And then there's scraps for everyone else. Running backs, wide receivers, tight ends, whatever. Just scraps. Dawson Knox gets a little bit, but not that much. And then for Miami, it's just Tua with Tyreek and Waddle. And scraps for everyone else. Like nothing else for anybody else. So like the way these offenses are designed, they're so condensed. They're so easy to break down. It just makes stacking and makes decision-making for both of these teams just really, really easy. I certainly prefer the Josh Allen side here. I certainly prefer the Buffalo side just because of Josh Allen's rushing ability. And I do think that Buffalo are the better team for sure. But the Miami side looks fine. They project really, really well. Tua projects well. Tyreek and Waddle both project well. The issue is that it's so fucking expensive to stack this that you have to make concessions elsewhere. So you have to be able to take value from elsewhere and make things work. And I think that's where a lot of people are going to make mistakes. I think people are mostly going to try to force in this game and eat value that isn't really all that valuable. And I think it's going to open up like this game. If you stack this game, your min cash equity will be really, really good. But your win equity, I think, will be less than if you go with stacks that are kind of more middling in price. Like I think that it's going to be better to go with, say, a Washington stack or a Philadelphia stack, because I think that you can fit more things around it rather than trying to force in the price tags here of these Buffalo and Miami players. You can use them as secondary stacks without issue, like Stephon Diggs and Jalen Waddle or Stephon Diggs and Tyreek Hill, I think is a really, really good secondary stack. Even Gabriel Davis and Jalen Waddle, I think, will be unique and something that I have a lot of interest in. But like overall, full stacking these teams is just going to be really, really hard this week unless we get some real, real good value. Like Josh Jacobs and James Conner being out would mean that you could do Eno Benjamin and Brandon Bolden and make this work. But overall, I think that it's a really hard stack to make. So anyway, that is going to be all of it. That's all the games. I do think that for the most part, I have a pretty good grasp of what I want to do this week, but I'm going to be spread out a lot. Like I like so many different little secondary stacks here and there, and in terms of my main stacks, I'm not even sure where I'm going to go for sure. Like I'll have a Las Vegas stack because I think that's really, really good, but I don't know for sure outside of that. I think that this week is really wide open. I still have a lot of research to do in terms of my own play, but the stacks that I'm most interested in are going to be stacks like Las Vegas, Buffalo, Miami. I like Washington. I like that Philadelphia stack a lot. I very likely end up with that Jalen Hurts, A.J. Brown combo. And if I don't, I will have A.J. Brown as a secondary correlation somewhere. I like the Minnesota stack, I like the Detroit stack. There's a lot of ways to go about it. So I think that it's really important this week not to just get locked on to any stack or any value. Play around with things, build a whole bunch of different lineups, figure out the things that work best for you and that you like the most. It should be a really, really good week. Last update here, of course, Theory DFS Advanced Players course is now available, and I did just push some updates last night to the portfolio trimmer and the duplication predictor. So both of those now have exposures shown of your portfolio, and also you can use some key player functionality, which I'm going to go record some YouTube tutorials on how to use those tools now with the new functionality right after I'm done with this. But go pick that up if you haven't. It's fantastic. The tools have worked terrifically for me, especially for Showdown. It's something that I've been really implementing into my process. So thank you guys for tuning in. Go check out PaydirtDFS.com if you haven't already. Go grab a subscription. We're having an awesome time in this NFL season. And we're going to make a whole bunch of money today. So thank you guys so much. I appreciate you. And I hope that you have a fantastic day.